Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we are talking one more time about comic cards. Now, I did make a video a while ago about the best comic cards for you to get, but that list is no longer applicable. That list has changed. There are better cards in the game. Their cards are easy to get for new players or free-to-play players, so I felt the need to update this video. There were a couple of people asking for it in the comment section, and I feel like a correct and accurate comic cards guide is super important and super crucial. If you're new to the game and you don't know why comic cards are so important, well, each card that you equip in this slot here that you reach from the main menu, if you tap on the sub menu and go to cards, when you equip the card, it will give you these stats in both orange and blue. And the great thing, the fantastic thing, probably the best thing in this game as far as team building, is that these stats will apply to every single character that you have unlocked. Comic cards are basically the build it yourself alliance bonuses. So the alliance bonus that you get from joining an alliance at a certain level, all of these stats, not the hero gain and the gold gain, but the other stats here will apply to every single character, which is great. But what's even better about comic cards is you can apply different stats. You can tweak the stats, you can equip and unequip different cards, and this is probably the most important thing that you need to focus on as a new player, aside from getting more characters and unlocking more heroes and villains and improving your roster. Improve your roster as your first goal. As your second goal, you should get these cards, because the cards will impact every single one of your characters. So the magnitude between good cards and bad cards is absolutely insane. You know, a new player with no cards versus a veteran with a lot of great cards, you can see right there. Sometimes up to 50% all attack is a difference between me and you. You know, 25% defense penetration, 30% skill cooldown. So the numbers are just mind-boggling, and comic cards are probably the easiest and the fastest and the cheapest way to improve your roster, improve your damage output, improve your skill rotation, and just make everything in the game easier for you and easier to clear content, world boss, and stuff like that. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have good cards. But what's great about cards now, especially, you don't need to spend crystals to get the good ones. So you don't need to go into the shop and buy the crystal, the comics for crystals sales when they're on. You don't need to buy this comic card chest. It's actually terrible. You can actually just get them through traditional grinding means. So I'm gonna list off the top 5 cards. I'm gonna list one extra because I think one of the top 5 cards for new players is actually quite weak once you get more advanced in the game and you can start clearing things like Shadowlands. And then I'm going to show you guys what I think are the top stats, perfect rolls for each of the cards once you attain them. So the top 5 cards that you should be aiming for if you're a new player, or if you're just trying to get the top list of cards and you want the best stats for your equipped cards, are as follows. You of course want to get Loki. This is probably the best card in the game. It's got all attack and skill cooldown as the first 2 stats. Those are the 2 most important stats on a card, and this is a very easy, simple card to get from Dimension Rifts. So if you guys are, again, not familiar, the first 2 stats on a card are orange. Those are the locked stats, kind of like obelisks. Those stats cannot change. So even if I upgrade this card, those 2 stats will stay the same. However, the blue stats will change. So as you can see here, this one has mind resist and attack speed. If we go over to my equipped Loki card, it does not have mind resist or attack speed. It has defense penetration and then lightning resist. Not too much better, but the defense pen is pretty sweet. So the blue stats will change. Unfortunately, the orange stats will not. Because the orange stats will not change, you want to prioritize cards that have perfect orange stats. So Loki is number 1 for that reason. All attack, skill cooldown, just perfect, delicious, bellissimo. Number 2 on the list is going to be the Punisher card. Now, I don't have a 4-star variant. I do have a 3-star variant. Defense penetration is very important, especially in today's meta, and attack speed is becoming more and more important. I wish I had more attack speed on my cards. I don't. I'm currently trying to re-roll this Punisher card to get a bit of a better roll. I do have a decent roll right now, but I want it to be better. But in general, attack speed and defense penetration will help out your whole squad greatly, and that's why this card is also on the list. Number 3, the Groot card, again, defense penetration is one of the primary stats. I picked this card over the Star-Lord card. The Star-Lord card is a little bit easier to roll as a 4-star card. You do get better options, but I think that critical damage is more important than crit rate, because a lot of characters buff themselves up with crit rate instead of crit damage. Doctor Strange being probably one of the most famous or notable ones, but there are a lot of other characters who do have a crit rate buff and not a crit damage buff, so you want to prioritize crit damage on your cards to kind of even out that balance between crit rate and crit damage. So far we have Loki, Punisher, and Groot. Number 4, and this is the one that I would switch out later on once you establish yourself in Shadowlands, is Marvel Zombies. Marvel Zombies is not a bad card. It does have cooldown as a first stat, but dodge is just not that great, and as you will see as we talk about it later on, the other stats that this card can roll are really not that great because there are conflicting categories. But still a very good card, especially for beginners, and again, very, very easy to get. The next card, the last card I'm going to talk about is, at least for the first 5, is the Nebula Avengers 1963 comic. Again, defense penetration on a first stat and then max HP. There are a couple of other cards that you can choose here. I personally like this one the most, and it gives my girl Nebula a little bit of a love and a nod, and I like that. And I think that the comic cover is actually really cool and retro, and those look kind of like AT-ATs in the background. I'm going to imagine that this is a Star Wars Avengers mashup, because I want to live in my own demented world. But those are the 5 cards that you want to aim for if you are a new player. Now, as far as getting these comic cards, farming for them is the most important part, and so if they're farmable, they're going to be great. If they're not farmable, they're going to be trash, or they're going to be very difficult to obtain. Thankfully, Netmarble has made it so that the best cards in the game, at least in my opinion, are extremely farmable, very easy to get. It only took me about a day or 2 to farm these 4-star cards here that you see: Groot, Loki, Nebula, and Zombies, and then the 3-star Punisher. So it is definitely well within your grasp to get these cards at 4 stars after about a week of playing the game. So primarily you're going to get cards from Dimension Rifts. As you can see here, we have 2 legendary rifts. This is going to become important later. I just want you to keep in mind at the bottom here, acquire additional comic cards. That's going to come into play a little bit later. But as far as the cards and where you can farm them, the Loki card can be farmed from both the Loki Rift and as an additional Rift reward. So if someone opens up a Loki Rift, as my Alliance member Phil did, you can go in and see that the Loki card is obtainable up to 3 stars as a drop. The Nebula card is available as a Rift drop from the Nebula Rift, which thematically makes sense, and it's also available as an additional Rift drop reward. The Groot card is available from the Bark is Worse Than Bite Groot Rift, so Groot's card is in Groot's Rift, Loki's card is in Loki's Rift, and Nebula's card is in Nebula's Rift. Very easy. And Groot card is also available as an additional Rift drop. The Marvel Zombies card is available as a Rift additional drop and in the Honor card chest, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then the Punisher card is available as a Rift additional drop. So the Punisher card and the Marvel Zombies card are a little bit more random because you can't get them from one specific Rift. However, both the Punisher card and the Zombies card will drop as an additional Rift reward. And that additional Rift reward is this right here: acquired additional comic cards. That's why it is really important, despite the fact that it may feel a little bit greasy or dirty or grimy. You should have at least a few people in your friends list who are of a high VIP level, either heroic or legendary, or if you're lucky, mythic, because then when they open Dimension Rifts, you can get these additional comic card factions or qualities to your Dimension Rift, and then that will allow you to potentially get those Marvel Zombies or Punisher cards. So if you just open a rare Rift or a normal Rift or an advanced Rift, as you can see my MODOK Rift, I only get the additional Dimension Debris and Hero XP. So unfortunately, I cannot open a Rift right now that gives me those additional comic cards. I need to rely on my Alliance members or my friends list people to open up higher VIP Dimension Rifts so that I can potentially get those comic cards. So that's probably going to be the biggest hurdle to cross when trying to get those last 2 cards, the Punisher 19 and the Marvel Zombies. However, they can be gotten through additional means, so it's not as bleak as you might think. Hopefully you play Timeline Battle, because if you do, you will acquire honor tokens. You can use those honor tokens on the honor card chest. The honor card chest is great because it's going to drop the Marvel Zombies card potentially, the Punisher 19 card potentially, and the Loki card potentially. So again, you can also get 3 of the 5 cards I'm listing as base cards from this honor card chest. Yes, you're probably going to be investing your tokens in either Captain Marvel or Warwolf, but this is also another option for you if you're really desperate for cards and you need to get one of the ones that I've listed as the top 5. Now, there is one card that I have said that I would replace if I could, and the card that I would recommend you replace as soon as you can get the better one is the Marvel Zombies card. The Marvel Zombies card is just not that great overall, and I would end up replacing it if I were you for the Thor Civil War 4 card. Unfortunately, this card is very hard to get. You can only get it from a comic card chest. You can only get the comic card chests one of 2 ways. You can either get them from the store by paying crystals, or you can get them from completing Shadowlands. And when you complete Shadowlands, you do get comic card chests in different varieties. You get them in rare and heroic and legendary variety. So you can get lucky and open up a Thor's card, and then you can upgrade it from there. So you could even get a 3 or 4-star Thor card. You don't necessarily need to roll one that's legendary. So there is a possibility to get that, but I know that you need to get to a very high level in Shadowlands before you start seeing those comic cards chests as rewards, so it can be very difficult, but that's kind of your end game goal, is to replace that Marvel Zombies card with the Thor's card. Now, speaking of top stats for each card, these are the ideal stats if you could control the rolls of the card and get absolutely everything you wanted. This is what you would be looking for. For the Loki card, after all attack and skill cooldown or cooldown time, you would want to roll defense penetration in the 3rd position, or the line that says mind resist, you'd want it to read defense penetration. The 4th one, you would want to read attack speed. The 5th one, you'd want to read all defense. And the last one, you'd want to read either energy attack or physical attack, depending on what you needed, depending on what you got. As you can see, I did not get any of those things. I only got defense penetration. Physical attack is not bad, but I kept this card because the grade of the card is very, very good. So this is another thing you need to take into consideration before I continue about the ideal stat rolls for each card. You need to also consider the quality of the card that you've rolled, or the grade. The grade is that blue colored number there at the bottom right hand corner, and the higher the grade, the higher the base stat roll. So you can see the base stat rolls for this Loki card, because it's a quality 7 card, is 11 and 11. If you go to my other Loki card, it's rank 5. The stats are only 5.5 and 5.5. It'll go up as I upgrade it, but it won't go higher unless I upgrade the card and unless I get lucky with the roll on the grade. So you cannot control the grade quality of the card, but you can hopefully get lucky and roll something at least grade 4 or up. If you get a grade 4, 5, or 6, or 7 card and it has most of the stats you're looking for in the preferred stats, I would say keep it, but it is up to you how great you want your cards to be before you equip it. Next up, we have the Punisher card. The ideal stats for the Punisher card are as follows. After defense penetration and attack speed, you want to roll in the 3rd position instead of dodge. You want either max HP or crit damage. Then you want cooldown time on the 4th position, or the 4th row there. Then you want something like all defense, and then for the last one you want either physical attack, energy attack, or ideally all attack in that last 6th position. Thank you for the Dimension Rift. As far as the Marvel Zombies card go, this card is probably the worst here because of the way that the stats are positioned and the way that the different stats interact or conflict with each other. So after dodge and cooldown time on the first 2 stats, the 3rd stat you want crit damage instead of mind resist, as I have, but then it gets really tricky in the 4th stat. So you can see here I have attack speed. Attack speed's really good, but this card can also roll both energy attack and defense penetration in this 4th slot. So you're actually wasting this stat because you have different top quality skills or percentages stats on the same slot. So you can't get them both. So unfortunately you just have to pick which one you want, which kind of sucks. Then in the 5th slot, or the 5th row, it's got a terrible roll. I mean, I don't want movement speed, I don't want energy defense, I don't want crit rate, I don't want recovery rate, excuse me, or cold resist or lightning resist. So the 5th slot for this card is just terrible. And then the last slot, you're competing between all attack and physical attack. So that's why this card takes a hit and isn't very good and is replaceable in my mind. The perfect Nebula card would look something like this. After the max HP and defense penetration, you would roll all attack on the 3rd row, as I did. Then you would roll cooldown time in the 4th, or if you didn't need it, attack speed would be really good as well. In the 5th, you would roll either all defense or crit damage, and then in the last row, you would roll energy attack. For the Groot card, the ideal roll would be after crit damage and defense penetration. In the 3rd row, you would want energy attack, but crit rate is not bad. Then you'd want cooldown time in the 4th row, all defense in the 5th row, and then either all attack or physical attack in the last row. As you can see here, I have a pretty good card. Recovery rate is not ideal. I wish that was energy attack, and I wish that lightning resist was all defense, but this is quite good. It's a grade 4 card, so I decided to keep it. That's a pretty good example of how you should gauge the quality of your cards. Finally, we have the Thor card. If you so happen to get it from Shadowlands or from another comic card chest that you buy for crystals, and you can replace the Marvel Zombies card with your Thor card, the ideal stats are as follows. After the all attack and physical defense stats, you would want physical attack on the 3rd row, you would want cooldown time on the 4th row, all defense or crit damage on the 5th row, and then defense penetration or energy attack on the 6th row. I was lucky and I got cooldown time, crit damage, and defense penetration, so this card is almost perfect. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's a grade 1 card, so my all attack and physical defense stats are only 7.5. They could go as high as 11 if I had rolled a grade 7 quality card. So you can see there that there is a little bit of a gap. It's about 3.5% between a grade 1 card for the first 2 stats and a grade 7 card for the first 2 stats. However, if you do get a grade 7 or a grade 6 card and it has none of the other blue stats that you want, you should re-roll it. Don't keep a card just because it's high grade. The card's stats are more important than the grade. That's why I equipped this 1 grade card. So those are my tips for you guys for cards. Please keep in mind that when you equip a card, if you want to unequip it, it's going to cost you crystals. So the advice or the general consensus is that you shouldn't equip a card until it has the stats that you want, because then if you roll it later on and you can't equip it, then you're going to be screwed. You're going to either have to pay crystals or you're going to have to overwrite the card. If you try to equip a card in a position where another card is already placed, it will delete that first card, so be careful. As well, you can't equip more than 1 card of the same variety, or else everyone would have 5 Loki cards equipped, and the card bonuses would be astronomical. They would be insane, like 50% skill cooldown, 50% all attack, etc. So those are the tips, guys. Those are the top 5 or top 6 best cards to get. You can farm 5 out of the 6 cards, so I expect that everyone watching this will now at least have this baseline of cards and card quality. So I encourage you guys, take this list to heart, really get these cards, really make sure that you have good cards equipped, because the difference between bad cards and good cards is the difference between night and day. It's the difference between, you know, Suicide Squad and Avengers. So please, guys, get your cards in order, get this shit together. And of course, guys, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.